video here, and we're gonna get rocking and rolling. Start right up with week number 6. So last week was week number 5. That was fun after the holiday, getting back in the groove and going. We ended up like hauling butt through the end. So I got a couple of things I want to tag today, and we're gonna button up some details. I've got 6, 7, and 8. I'll get through 6, 7, and 8 parts. Last week we talked about marketing and how we're shifting that thinking on marketing. It's kind of funny. So I was talking to a guy, and he's like, instead of sitting by myself, we sat at the bar at the restaurant waiting for food, and this guy sits down next to me. Turns out he's a developer, and he looks at me after we talk about real estate, and he goes, man, I really actually need a real estate agent. And the guy's like, come on, really, you messing with me? He's like, no, seriously, I've got this project I'm working on, and I don't really have a go-to person. You seem like a pretty cool dude. This is one of our EXP agents out of San Antonio that I've been coaching. And he's like, Russ, I cannot believe that this stuff works. It doesn't make sense to me that this stuff works. And his way of shifting the conversation, the way of delivering value. And then when he actually rolled out his market update info to the guy's like, wow, man, you really know your stuff. He might not know anything else about real estate, but he knew the market update. And that's, guys like, hey, how's the market? And he's like, boom, freaking nailed it. And next thing you know, this guy's got a deal that's going to run through. They're going to be doing like about $8 million in commercial stuff. And this guy actually knows how to do commercial stuff a little bit. So he's got 3 different purchases for $8 million in the next, 30, 60, 90 days, because the guy's trying to pick up a piece that he can build. So he's going to build a small shopping center, which dovetails with 2 other things he wants to do. And he needs somebody to represent him. So it's one of those things where you just stand back and go, wow, if you really start to ingrain this in your lifestyle, you really start to ingrain this in the way you do business and the way you communicate with people, you're going to find really, really quick that it just works. It just consistently works. Hang on a second here. I got something popping up on my computer. Been uploading video all morning, and we've been having tech issues here, which is probably why you guys got booted a bunch this morning. So anyway, so with that being said, we've got a list of things we want to go through today to be able to cruise along. And you got to start implementing this stuff and consistently implement this stuff. So number one thing right now, I had this conversation with somebody the other day, and they're like, Russ, well, what do I do right now? What do I do right now to start connecting to get myself set up for next year? And the number one thing you can do right now is put your head down, go get holiday cards, send a holiday card to your sphere of influence list, and it just simply says something like this: Happy holidays, wish you the best, you and your family the best for the new year, sign your name, stick a business card in it, hand address the envelope, and ship it. Literally simple. Students, like, don't do anything else crazy, don't have to get complicated, don't have to get fancy. Go to Dollar General, go to Dollar Store, Dollar Tree, whatever dollar thing you got in your neighborhood, and go and get the cheapest card, simple thing. Don't get crazy with it. Don't buy a piece of paper crap and don't make your own with your computer, but go buy something really simple. Make sure it's got a colored envelope, right? So one of the things that's really important as you're getting into this time of year and you're getting into doing some of these mailers, the way we talk about doing these mailers, is when you get something hand addressed in your mail, which is why handwritten personal notes work, it ties your brain to something that you did before in the past. It ties your brain to memories that are really good. And here's the memories that most of you guys should probably have rattling around somewhere in your brain. Did anybody ever send you something as a kid in the mail on your birthday or on holidays? Yeah, right. Yeah. Most people have had that experience, right? So my grandma sent, she sent a holiday card, and she sent a birthday card. And when we were kids, particularly when we were kids, and now she still does this as an adult, which drives me crazy, she'd put $25 in a card and send it to us, right? Hand addressed, and it was a little thing, and it just said, love grandma. Didn't say anything else, just love grandma. And that was it. But your brain gets this little endorphin burst that says, hey, wait a minute, grandma sent me a card, right? And you get this connection to something that you've had in your past that actually makes you feel good. So if you send them something, obviously they're not going to think it's their grandma if their grandma's not around, but it's going to tie to that history and those feelings that they've had in the past, where you get something in the mail, it's hand addressed, it's got something good in it. So if you can tie to something, a feeling somebody else has had, and tie to like somebody else's credibility, it really makes a shift in the way they start to feel. And it puts this little endorphin burst in their head and ties it to them. So when they look at it, it starts to attach you to a warm, fuzzy feeling that they had in the past. This is just the way the human brain works, the way our brain chemistry works. So if you start tying in saying, hey, if your brain chemistry works like this, and I do this, it dovetails with that brain chemistry. You got a win-win scenario, right? That's why if you have good memories of somebody and you meet somebody else that reminds you of somebody else, you automatically like them. If you have bad memories of somebody and you meet somebody that looks like that somebody you had bad memories of, you automatically don't really trust them and don't really like them as much, right? Because you're tying to something that's happened in the past. This is a great part about our brain is we're supposed to be able to remember stuff. As we get older, we start to slip a disc here and there, right? And every once in a while you're standing there going, where was I going with this? It's happened to me like twice in the last 3 weeks. I'm like, what was I at? What was I talking about? It just happens sometimes, right? But when you tie to what other people are doing and tie to what other people's feelings have created with you and good experiences, it starts to build a little bit of credibility, and it puts that same little chemical lab in your head that goes, a little spurt of good stuff, right? So handwritten envelopes, colored envelopes, holiday cards, great time of year to do that. I mean, you still got time. Today is what, the 11th, which means you still have time to be able to get that done. Will it take you a couple of hours to do? Absolutely. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Every time I tell people to do this, they say, wow, Russ, I got a great response from that, because nobody else is doing this these days. And it's not, look at me, I'm a realtor, I want to help you sell a house. It's just simply happy holidays, and you throw your info in there so they know where you're at, right? It's just one more tap that goes, hey, that person's out there. I remember that guy, right? For some of you, it might be the first time you reconnect to them in a long time. And it's a good way to just do it. It's super casual, super informal. Just fire on a holiday card, throw your card in it, see you later. Happy holidays to you and your family. Whew, go on, sign it. Okay? So some of you might be thinking, shortcut, I can have that done by a printer and I don't have to do anything. No, not the ideal way to do it. Like, if you can have it handwritten, great. If you want to pay somebody else to handwrite them, that's fine too. Nobody knows what my handwriting looks like, so who knows? I might write like a 12-year-old girl. You wouldn't know. Actually, yeah, you would, because you see my writing behind it. Not 12-year-old girl writing. It's more like sledgehammer style, right? So find somebody you can pay. You've got probably a couple of 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds laying around, hanging out, next door neighbors' kids. Be like, hey, you want to make a quick $20? You know, do 100 of these things, right? I'll give you 25 cents a pop. It's 25 bucks. You know, so you can get this stuff done a lot faster. You don't have to do it yourself. Sign your name to it personally, and you might get writer's cramp. It is what it is. I posted that on Facebook and Six Figure Sphere group and the Jumpstart group yesterday. So it's a great time to do that. So I just want to make sure you guys got that piece of information because it's important. Great way to connect this time of year. Okay, so last week we talked about time management for a very, very brief period of time. Time management. Got my printer working, thankfully. Okay, so time management. This time management is simply saying, okay, if I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, so like if I open my calendar right now, I've got a list of things I'm doing tomorrow. I've got a list of things that are important. As I go through my list, it's like people say, well, to-do list, you got to do a to-do list. I've got a to-done list, right? It's like, I don't want to keep having a list of things to do. I want a list of things I've done. So you start building out these lists and start tracking and say, okay, as you're going through the day today, something's going to pop into your head and you're like, oh, shoot, I got to remember that, right? I will tell you guys, if you want to use the electronic version of this, that's great. But I'll tell you the best way to do this is to take the paper version. This is in the Jumpstart Masterclass online version in the actual class itself that I have online. This is in there. It's a little tab called Time Management. And underneath that tab, it says Time Management Doc. And you open the doc and boom, it's right there, right? It's got an Excel version and it's got the PDF version, which you can print. So at the top of this, it's got tasks. And what happens is you're going through your day, you can just like drop in, oh yeah, I got to remember to do that. I got to remember to do that. I got to remember to do that, right? You can drop in your tasks. So let's say, for example, your holiday cards. I'm going to put holiday cards as my top task. What is the priority on that? Man, you got to get that done now if you're going to get going. Get it done now. How much time do you think it's going to take? I don't know. You could probably do like 50 of them an hour. So if you've got 200 people, you should be able to get them done in 4 hours. I wouldn't try to tackle it all in one burst. I would say do 50 today, do 50 tomorrow, do 50 the next day. So I'm going to put 1 hour and just get in there and freaking hammer those things out, right? Just literally just boom, 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 boom. Shut your phone off, put a little music on, put your phone in airplane mode, ignore everything else, and just 1 hour, boom, 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 boom. Just like you're going to go and crush a workout, okay? Block it out in your time. When are you going to do it? From 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, I'm going to be ready to rock and roll at 9. hit the ground running. At 10 o'clock, that bell goes off, I'm done. And now you'll know how many you can do an hour. So if you only get 25 done, well, then you're going to have to block a couple more hours for this thing, right? So it's a perfect example. So what is a task? How much time do you think you're going to need for it? And then you block out that time on your schedule for the next day if you can, and or you can block it out for the next 2 or 3 days. And here's the thing, guys. You remember, like with the 30 points to success, we take this stuff and we actually use the paper version until it really ingrains in your head. So it's really dug in. It makes it real. It makes it tangible, and it kind of starts to add a little bit of structure to something, right? Because if I say to most people, they're like, well, hey, what do you got to do for the week? And they're like, well, you know, and they really don't have a boom, 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 the knock it out plan, right? If I've got my 5 tasks, as the weekend is going along, Friday night comes along, Saturday night comes along, you just start bullet point things in here, right? And then you say, okay, Monday I'll do that one, Tuesday I'll do that one. You start blocking out the time for it. So the most important stuff you get done first. So as you're going through, when you're saying, okay, I'm blocking out my day tomorrow, what's the priority? Right over here it says circle priority number. You do not want to schedule your priority 5 stuff first. If your priority 1 stuff doesn't get done, is it a big deal? Yeah, it's a big deal if it doesn't get done. If your scheduled 5 priority doesn't get done, is it as big of a deal? No, because it was lower priority. You can kick 5 over to the next day, right? So if you have a listing appointment tomorrow, that's going to be a priority 1, right? Get that thing ready to rock and roll. You got to show buyers tomorrow, buyer's house tomorrow, buyer showing. That's a priority 1. Okay, so you put that in there, and then once you're done with that, what else are you going to do? Ideally, probably your buyers aren't going to be wanting to look at houses first thing in the morning, and your listing's probably not going to be first thing in the morning. So I'd say, okay, you're my priority 2 and 3 stuff. I'll put that in the early morning. I'll do all of my listing information, my setting up my CMA, getting all my parts and pieces put together. So I'm ready to rock and roll. I know what I'm doing. I've got my structure set up. And then once I do that, get that done, I'll block out an hour and a half, 2 hours of setup for my listing appointment. I want to do that first thing in the morning, because if I have a technology issue like we had this morning, I've got time to fix it. If I wait till like I'm going to do the 2 hours before the listing, you're going to freak out, right? What if you don't have enough time? What if it doesn't make sense? What if you're pulling up your computer and the MLS isn't working? What if your internet's not working? What if your printer's not working? So do that the day before, or do it the morning of, and that way you got a backup plan if something goes wrong. So like last week, before I did the session here, I was printing out this, and my printer didn't print with whatever, for whatever reason, the black ink didn't want to work, and I had this real faded mess. Well, I didn't have time to run over to Office Depot, get another printer cartridge, and then come back and get the thing set up. So I set myself up for failure last week, just thinking, oh yeah, I got to print that thing out, right? Didn't get it done early enough, and then didn't have the time to fix it. So do your prep work first early and get it done, and then fill in before. So tomorrow, let's say tomorrow, I've got a listing tomorrow. So my listing's at 5 p.m. I'm going to schedule from 9 to 11. I'm going to schedule, put all the listing info together, print out the package, print out the comparative market information, print out my results page, get everything set up, make sure I know what's going on, make sure I know what the area is doing, make sure I know what the schools are doing, make sure I know what the trends are in that particular neighborhood. Once I get all of that information together, then from 11 to 12, I'm going to block my 1 hour out and bang out holiday cards. Okay? That would be a great way to structure that. And then you're going to have certain things that end up on this list all the time that are consistently popping up on this list, you know, sending out your value pieces. So there's times when you're saying, hey, I'm going to send out my value stuff. And if I'm going to send something in the mail, I block out 1 hour today, 1 hour tomorrow, 1 hour the next day, 1 hour the next day. And if I need to, I can block an extra hour on Friday. So I'm going to try to get it all done in 4 hours. Okay? What you'll start finding is when you start estimating the amount of time you need to do something, typically you're going to estimate a lot shorter time than you would if you're just like, well, you know, I'm just going to start working on it, right? So if I block out 1 hour for something and the goal is to get 50 done in an hour, I'm way more likely to get 50 done in an hour as opposed to I'm just going to sit down, I'm just going to kind of pick away at it, right? So when I sit down, I'm going to do a process and fool myself by giving myself an artificial deadline. This is a great process in business. Since you don't have a boss telling you what to do every day, Vernell, you got to be your own boss. You're like, okay, Vernell, here's what I got to do. You got to do 200 holiday cards. I need you to get 50 of them done in the next hour. And you're like, okay, boss. You can do that by looking in the mirror and say, okay, boss. And you set a timer, right? Set an egg timer and just get after it, right? So what happens is there's a principle they call Parkinson's law. And Parkinson's, you know, you see somebody with Parkinson's, their hands are flying around, their body twitches and so forth. It's uncontrollable movement. It's not productive movement. So there's a phrase called Parkinson's law, which is basically you have this fidget factor where you're doing stuff, but you're not getting anything done. So what happens is if you build an artificial timeline, say, okay, I have from 11 to 12 to get this done, you're way more likely to get it done. So what they found is when you say to somebody, here's what I need you to get done, and I need you to get this done tomorrow, guess how long it takes for them to get it done? Like 8 hours, right? Isn't it amazing how almost every job takes 8 hours a day to do? It's probably more like 2 or 3 hours worth of work, and they just kind of piddle it along over an 8-hour span and turn it into an 8-hour-a-day job, right? I don't see a whole lot of employees going, I don't have enough work. I got all my stuff done in 3 hours. Can you give me something else to do? Most people don't do that. But in this business, you're not getting paid by the hour. You don't have a boss looking over your shoulder. So if you get your stuff done in 3 hours, you get your points done, you get your time management done, you've got your stuff lined up, you're rock and rolling, you've done your marketing, you've got your system working, you get done in 3 hours. Good for you. Knock it out, right? There are going to be days where you work a lot more hours, and then you got to make sure you have those days where you don't work as many hours. You just got to take that time and enjoy yourself and have some fun and recharge your batteries, because tomorrow could be a 12-hour day, right? So last week I did this with you guys on Wednesday, and then Thursday was a 12-hour day. So I had a shorter day on Wednesday, and I had a 12-hour day on Thursday. So I just balanced my time. Instead of working 10 or 12 hours on Wednesday last week, I worked 5 or 6, and then I was done, and I fiddled around with stuff, and I went and built stuff in the garage, working on a couple of small projects for Christmas presents. And with that said, then I busted it out and went to Orlando and did an event and did some follow-up and blah, blah, blah. By the time I got back, I had a 12-hour day. So you've got to just say, okay, what do I need to get done? Get it done and shut it down. If you don't build an artificial timeline, you're going to stretch it out. It's going to take more time. So pretty much everything I do, when I go in, I'm like, I'm going to work as hard and fast as I can, and effective and efficient, and do a good job for 1 hour, 2 hours on that, and then I'm shutting it off. If I'm not done, I block it out the next day. I've actually used an egg timer many, many, many times. You can use your cell phone, set a timer, 1 hour, boom. I'm going to bang out as much as I can there with zero distraction, get it done. It's amazing how much work you can get done if you build yourself artificial timelines. And let me give you a perfect example. Have any of you ever taken a vacation? Yep. The day before you take vacation, everything in their brother goes on. That seller that you have been talking to for 6 months, getting ready to sell their house, like, I'm ready to list my house today. You're like, come on, really? And then a buyer that you've been working on is finally like, okay, I'm ready to put an offer on that house. Like, come on, really? You couldn't have done that yesterday or the day before, or the day before, or the day before? No. No, they know you're leaving on Saturday. Well, I better squeeze it in before he leaves, right? Every time I'm leaving Michigan to come back to Tampa for the summer or for the winter, I've got 4 or 5 people like, hey, Russ, real quick, I know you're leaving. I know you're leaving on Monday. Is there any way you could do this? And I'm like, yeah, sure. If you told me 3 weeks ago, right? I had like 5 of those things happen right before I left to come south. And every time I go north, like last time I left to go north, the neighbor around the corner literally listed his house 2 days before I left. Been working on him for 6 months. 2 days before I leave, he's like, man, I want to get this thing listed before you leave. Fine, right? It's not a big deal because I have team people on this end, I have team people on that end. It's not the end of the world. But when they want to see me, they're like, well, we got to squeeze this in real quick. They don't realize you got all the packing to do and all the stuff I've got to do. They just want to make sure their stuff is done, right? So it's normal stuff, and you get amazing amount of things done the day before you leave to go anywhere. This process here starts metering it out. So build yourself some artificial timelines, get in and get it done. So make a list of what you need to do tomorrow. I'd like you to try this as a game. Take this out, print this out today, put down your list of what you need to do, schedule them into your schedule, actually try to accurately estimate how long it's going to take for you to do it, and then the next day, implement it to the T. I will bet you anything, if you write down a list of what you need to do and block out time for it, there's probably only 3, maybe 4 hours worth of work you've got really that you need to do tomorrow. You probably don't have 8, 10, or 12 hours worth of work to do tomorrow. But I hear real estate agents talking all the time. I'm working 50 and 60 hours a week. That's because you're doing a crap job of managing your time. You're doing a crap job of taking care of blocking stuff out, getting in, be highly effective, really judicious, get in, do your thing, and get out, right? Again, we're not getting paid by the hour. So get in, hammer it down, and get out of there. Do a great job and get out of there, right? It's amazing how efficient you can be when you start implementing stuff like this in your life. So give that a whirl. This is a game changer. If you're feeling like, every day I kind of go through, I'm like, I really don't have an exact plan on what I'm doing. Have a plan, right? Wake up, do your thing, shut it down, right? I'd rather see you work 4 hours hard than work 8 hours like a slob, because, like, again, you're still getting paid the same amount of money. Okay, so that's one. Let's see, crazy eights. Woo! Here's another one that comes up, right? So this is in the Jumpstart Masterclass also, and in the attachments resources tab in the Jumpstart Masterclass online, you've got this process called crazy eights. So one of the things you're going to do as you're adding people to your sphere of influence, when you first get somebody in your sphere of influence, what I want you to do is I want you to kind of put the hammer down for a little bit and really make that connection happen. Because what happens is when you first meet somebody, first time you meet them, they don't really know you that well. You can tell them, hey, by the way, over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to fire some stuff up and get you up to speed with what I do and make sure you're up to speed with what I have and what I know. You know, I'm a real estate agent. You asked me how the market was. I've got a couple things I'll fire out to you. And there's a couple of other things I'll do also while we're going. So the fun part is, like, think about building a relationship. Have any of you gotten into a relationship recently? I've been married 25 years, so my wife says I'm not allowed to get in any relationships, which is fine with me. So with that said, remember back a million years ago, 25 years ago, when you first met the love of your life, or first met the previous love of your life that you just divorced, or whatever that person was. Remember that person where you're like, oh, I really like this person. Wow, they're kind of cute. I want to hang out with them. Did you be like, okay, I'm going to see that. I saw them. I like them. I said hi to them. We hung out. We talked for a little while. And then I'm like, you know what? I really, really like this person a lot. So I'll talk to him next month. Said nobody ever, right? If you meet somebody, you really like them, you want to hang out with them again soon, right? Like, hey, when do you want to get together again? Tomorrow. Hey, when do you want to get together again? How about the next day also? And next thing you know, you're in each other's face every day for 6 months, right? And you're like, I really love this guy. He's so great and he's so sweet. And I love the way he makes that funny face. And then, like, at the 1 year mark, you're like, what the heck is wrong with his face? Why does he always do that? So it's like some of the funny, quirky things when you're brand new in a relationship that you're like, oh, that's so cute. And then you're like, that's so annoying, right? It's just human. So we see this stuff in life, but this is the same thing that happens when you're building a relationship with somebody in the real estate business. If you just say hi to them, you meet them, and then you don't communicate with them immediately, they're going to kind of forget who you are, and they just kind of lose all that fuzz, right? So what happens is, this is the way your brain works. Your brain is a pretty amazing tool, right? So you've got your synapses in your brain. So let's pretend this is inside my skull. It is a blow up of inside my skull. And when I meet somebody, I make a connection, right? I make a synaptic connection. I'm like, I know them, I like them, I trust them. They seem nice, they seem reasonable. Like Vernell, when I first met you, right? Like, hey, I really like her. She's friendly, she's enthusiastic, she's nice, right? So we made this little bridge, right? And then the next time we saw each other, we made another bridge, right? And then you called me and asked me a question. We made another bridge. And then you sent me an email, and I responded to your email in a timely manner, right? And it was like, made another bridge, right? And then we met at the Detroit event, right? Like, I got a hug. That's worth 5 or 6, right? Okay. So then you start seeing, it's like, okay, so here's what I like to look. Here's the analogy, right? If you had two poles, like 2 poles of metal, right? 2 long poles of metal. And I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We are going to tie a piece of thread across those 2 poles, and I want you to sit on it. We're good? 1 piece of thread, tie it between the 2 poles, and I want you to sit on it like a sling. We good? Of course you're not, right? But what happens is you take 1 piece of thread, and then you add another piece of thread, another piece of thread, another piece of thread, another one, another one, another one. You get to 1,000 pieces of thread. You can sit on that thing, right? It starts with 1 piece of thread. So every time you communicate with somebody, every time you have an interaction with somebody, you're adding another thread to that connection. You're building that connection. You're building the strength. You're building the ability to have that connection deeper the next time too, right? And as you stop talking to people and you stop communicating with them, what happens? That thread gets thinner and thinner and thinner. Think about it like this. If you had somebody you really liked and you hung out with them for 5 months straight, and then you're like, I don't have time for them now. And then you're like, I'm seeing them once a week. And the next thing you know, you're seeing them once a month. And the next thing you know, you're seeing them once every other month. And then next thing you know, you haven't seen them in 6 months. Is that relationship getting stronger or weaker? It's getting weaker, right? So every interaction you've got with your customers is building relationship, and you're building those synaptic connections, right? Good interactions build synaptic connections pretty fast, right? Feeling good builds synaptic connections fast. If you have one bad experience, it takes 5 good experiences to overrun that bad one, right? It takes 5 good experiences to overrun a bad experience, right? Does it happen occasionally? Absolutely. Do you have weird things happen? Absolutely. Does it take away a bunch of threads? Absolutely. And then you have to rebuild that again, right? You got to rebuild that trust, rebuild that confidence. People goof stuff up. People goof stuff up all the time. And then you got to rebuild that trust. If you goof stuff up and you keep it goofed up and you don't rebuild, then you drop down to that lower point, right? Remember that credibility thing that we were talking about? Here's your professional credibility. You build professional credibility, build credibility, build credibility, build credibility. And then that person calls you and says, hey, man, I need something, and you don't respond to them, all that credibility goes back down, right? And then what has to happen? Now I got next time I deliver value, phone call, handwritten note, boom, boom, boom. You got to rebuild that back up, right? So like Vernell sent me something last week, and the cool part is she knows kind of what I do. So she's like, hey, Russ, I know you got a bunch of things going on, so you don't have to answer this immediately, but can you help me with this process? And I was like, reached out to her. I'm like, hey, I didn't forget about you. Been tied up, whatever. I'll catch up to you. And then when I finally called her, I'm like, hey, sorry it took me so long to get to you. And she's like, I totally get it. I understand. No big deal. And we talked through it, right? I wanted to make sure I talked to her because it was important to relay that information, make sure she got it right. And so what would happen is if I did drop the ball, I'd lose a ton of credibility with her. Now, you guys know I'm a professional guy and I'm busy and I got stuff going on. And every once in a while we drop something and we miss something. So if you reach out to me and you don't get me, or you don't get a response for something, there's a good chance, who knows, maybe a technology issue. Sometimes you get so many things happen in one day, it just gets buried and gets lost. That happens on occasion. If it happens all the time, you got a crappy system. If your system fails consistently, you've got a bad system. If it fails once in a while and you have a screw up once in a while, no big deal. But if you consistently miss stuff, you blow your credibility and you start taking those threads back away, and you're no longer able to rely on that. You're no longer able to sit on that thread that you've run back and forth. As soon as you start to put any pressure on that thing, it's going to snap. Okay? So it's really important that you understand that process and how that synaptic connection works. Works exactly the same with relationships with people as it does with relationships with business. Okay? So super important. So this crazy 8 system is literally to be able to get that synaptic connection going quickly. So if you look at the crazy 8s, all this simply is here's 8 contacts you want to do over the next 2 months, maybe 3 absolute max, right? So if you meet somebody, you're like, hey, they don't hear from you for a week, they're going to forget about you pretty quick. So a lot of things you'll see me teach is like, I meet somebody, they say, hey, by the way, blah, 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 how's the market? I say, hey, well, I've got a market update I could send to you. Would you like me to send that to you? They go, yeah, absolutely. I literally just did this yesterday to a title person. I said, by the way, I got this market update. I can send it to you if you want it to, because she asked me how's the market. Blah, blah, blah. By the way, I do a market update. You want me to give it? Yeah, give me your info. And she gave me her info. It's kind of funny. So today I have to send her the follow-up by, hey, by the way, here's the market update. So if I waited a week or 2 for that, she'd get it and she'd be like, hey, whatever, right? But since I waited till today, she's going to forget that I was there. She's got other things going on. She's got a life. I'm not the center of her universe. She's the center of her universe. And I'm going to drop this out to her and she's going to go, oh, holy crap. Now, not only did he give me value, he did what he said he was going to do, and he has credibility. And I just add a bunch of threads to that connection. Pretty cool, right? It's literally that simple. So this is that thread builder, right? So crazy 8s. Contact 1, day 1 after meeting a contact, you're going to send them a welcome letter introducing you and your services and a value piece. So if you meet somebody, you get something in their hands the next day. So value piece could be real estate market update. Say, hey, by the way, it was nice meeting you yesterday. Hey, I saw this article I thought was interesting. Or I saw this graphic we were sending out to all of the other people in our sphere of influence, and I thought you'd get a kick out of it. You send that to them, right? You send it to them in the mail, because what happens is you just call them on the phone, they forget about it. When you send them something in the mail, they put something tangible in their hands, they see it, they get it, they're going to throw it in the garbage, but it really makes you pop out and stand out. Now you've got another connection. You've got another bond that you can go through, right? Contact number 2 is follow up and make sure they got it, right? So remember, we said you add somebody to your sphere, you deliver value, then you follow up with a phone call, be like, hey, by the way, did you get the thing that I sent to you? I want to make sure it got to you. Yeah, I did, man. Thanks. It was really great. Now you've built more threads in there, right? And then you send them a handwritten personal note, say, hey, it was really great chatting with you the other day. Look forward to potentially doing business with you in the future. If you ever need anything about a house, don't hesitate to reach out to me, right? Not just buy or sell. I am a resource for anything house related. Somebody just tagged me yesterday on Facebook and like, hey, Russ, do you know anybody that can install a set of French doors with a transom above it? Knowing full well, I know a bunch of people and are literally tagged me on it going, hey, Russ, do you know somebody? This is somebody that I did triathlons with like 3 years ago. And they're like, I know Russ knows everybody, so boom, go. So I know some of the stuff I'm doing still working, right? Which is pretty cool. When somebody randomly reaches out, like, Russ gotta know somebody, right? I was actually like, yeah, actually I do know 2 or 3 people. Let's rock and roll, right? If I didn't know 2 or 3 people, I'd get on there and say, hey, by the way, who do we know in our system? Guys, who do we know in our system that can do a transom and doors? Who do we have as a good door specialist? And somebody knows a door specialist. Particularly in Florida, we have a lot of sliding glass doors here, and there are people that literally just work on sliding glass doors, redoing the rollers and the bushings and the tracks and all that stuff. People literally, that's all they do. So you got to have one of those in your repertoire because these things blow up all the time. You go to every new house, you start opening and closing the door, and it rolls like crap. You got to get your door guy out there and make it roll nice again. Contact 3 is you send the handwritten note, and then contact 4 is going to be send them a market update. So even if they don't ask for a market update, your 4th contact is send them a market update because it's something that people want to know about. There's a bunch of people, when you send it to them, you're like, hey, that was really good info. I didn't know that, right? You can send them a market update via email. You can send them a market update via Facebook. You can send them a market update via Messenger. You can send them a market update via paper. Print it out. Here's a quick summary of what's going on in the market with a couple numbers. If you ever need anything with a house, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Any number of ways you can do that. After you do that, then you do a follow-up again. Now, keep in mind, guys, you're not doing this in 2 or 3 days. You don't want to freak them out. You don't want to scare them off, right? It's like I see Vernell, and I'm like, hey, I kind of like Vernell. She's kind of cute, right? I'm like, I want to hang out with her. And then I call her up like that night. I'm like, hey, you want to hang out? She's like, yeah, that's great. The next day, I'm like, hey, you want to hang out? Yeah, that's great. And the next day, I'm like, hey, you want to hang out? Yeah, that's great. Like, you drive her crazy. She's like, I don't want to hang out with him anymore, right? He's married. Something's wrong with that guy, okay? So you're not going to drive him crazy, but you're going to do this over 2 or 3 months and really solidify that contact. Contact 5, follow phone call, then you're basically going through this exact same system again. You might be like, Russ, does that seem a little extreme? Not so much. When you got a new relationship and somebody wanted something from you and you met them, like, hey, let me get you up to speed on what's going on. After you get to that first couple of contacts, those first 8 contacts, you've got 2 market updates to them, you got 2 phone calls, you got 2 handwritten personal notes, and you've got a couple of other value pieces that they've got in their hands. You've kind of built that up. Now you can go to like a 1-month type scenario, right? You don't have to keep pounding away on them every week. If you pound away on them every week, you're going to scare the crap out of them. You're going to scare them away. So, and you just tell them, hey, for the next, for the first month or 2, usually I send out a couple of things and make sure we got a good connection, make sure you know how to get a hold of me. I got a couple of value pieces, things that I send out to people that are new in my system to get them up to speed on what's going on in the market. And then I back it way off. So don't worry, I'm not going to bother you. I'm not going to drive you crazy for the rest of your life every week. And most people go, oh, okay, cool. And then when you send them stuff, they're like, oh, he's doing what he says he did. Now you get credibility again, right? And then you back it off because you don't want to freak them out, right? I don't send my mom something every week that's real estate related because she'll be like, stop sending me crap, right? Your friends will do the same thing. Your clients will do the same thing. But you want to make sure you get in what we call flow, right? So I like Larry Kendall coined the word flow, and they had their system for doing something like this too, which is like get that immediate contact. Now they do like 10 contacts in 30 days. I think that's way overkill, right? Way, way overkill. Somebody did that to me, I'd be like, what the heck are they doing? Stop it. Leave me alone. I don't like you that much. I liked you before. Now I like you even less. So the goal is to build more connection, not piss them off. Okay? And this is a pretty good balance for that. You want to stretch it out over 3 months? That's fine. But you don't want to stretch it out over 6. That's too long. Keep in mind, 2 of these contacts are doing a market update, which is something people want to see. They're not always going to open it, but they're going to want to see it. When they're ready to see it and they're interested, they're going to want to check it out, right? And so when you're having that call with somebody, say, hey, I sent you the real estate market update. I know, like, if you had a stock that was $300,000, you'd check it once in a while, which is why I send this out to everybody so they can know what's going on with one of their largest personal assets. And most people go, oh, that's good info. I'm glad that's kind of cool. So I wouldn't know that info if you didn't tell it to me. Okay. Here's a fun part. 6, 7, and 8 will actually enhance that too. Okay. So that's crazy 8. That's something you want to add into your repertoire to be able to help take your business to the next level and really, really knock it out of the park and really start to solidify those relationships. Remember, guys, it's a relationship business. How do you build a relationship? You build a relationship with contact and communication. Something's valuable. If you could build a relationship with, like, hey, look at me. It's like, hey, I'm going to call Paula every day, and I'm going to tell her how great I am. Paula, you're not going to believe how great I am. I just sold another house. Paula, you're not going to believe how great I am today. Look at my listing that I just got. Paula, you're not going to believe this. I just got an award for being the coolest, sexiest real estate agent in Boston. Paula, hey, you're not going to believe this. I think I got a little bit taller because my client loves me to death. Look how great I did on this job. Hey, by the way, Paula, look at this testimonial I got about how great I am. Hey, Paula, here's me with my other client we just had a closing with that loves me to death, and here's their testimonial. And Paula, by the way, did I mention how great I am?
I know a couple of realtors like that in the area.
Wow. Wow. Right? Every single post. If you look at the post and say, is this look at me, or is this here's something for you? You got to say, no, I'm not saying don't do a little bit of that. Hey, I did something cool. I'm saying you can do some of that, right? But you can't do every single post. Hey, Paula, look at me. I'm a sexy beast. I'm the baddest realtor in town, and you got to use me because everybody else loves me too. If you start walking around doing that, like, man, that doesn't work, right? You ask questions, you deliver value. Say, hey, here's something for you. Here's something I thought you'd find interesting. Here's something that I thought you might need to know. Here's something about your house you need to know. Here's something about the market you need to know. Did you know that a 0.25% change in a $300,000 house in interest rate will save you $43,000 over the life of the loan? That's pretty unbelievable info. I didn't know that until I ran the numbers, and I was scared, going, holy crap, that's a big deal. Those types of things, when you post that kind of stuff and you put that stuff out to people and you tell people that kind of stuff, is awesome. I really, like, somebody, you see these posts, like, #1 realtor. Look at me, I just got wrote up. Like, most people look at that and be like, great, nice job stroking yourself, right? Like, you want to do that, fine, but you got to do it like 1 out of 5. Do 5, here's something for you, and then 1's like, hey, here's something cool that I got to do. I'd much rather see Jay post a picture of, like, hey, man, here's something I really dig about doing business the way I do business. It frees me up to be able to do this. I get to hang out with Sunshine Kids, which is kids that do a trip with kids with cancer. It's one of my favorite things in the world to do. And here's me having fun with a bunch of kids and having a good time. Makes you human, right? You'll see me post pictures on my personal stuff. I post pictures on my personal Facebook page of me building crap, right? Building my satchel man bags and sold 3 knives yesterday and blah, 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 blah. I build crap. I'm a craftsman. I like to make things with my hands. I make a bunch of stuff and I post that online because people buy the stuff. So it's my connection to the world. And every once in a while on my personal site, I post some real estate stuff too. But I'm not the real estate channel, all real estate all day. If I do that on my 6-figure sphere group. It's real estate related stuff. I do that in Jumpstart groups, real estate related stuff, right? So that's what you want to make sure you're shifting in your world, right? So Crazy 8 is about them. It's not about you, okay? Let's see, 6, 7, and 8, okay? Number 6 in the system. So number 1 in the system is work your sphere of influence, build your sphere of influence, add people to it. Number 2 is deliver value. Number 3 is make phone calls. After you deliver value, you make a phone call. I heard somebody the other day and they're like, Rose, I don't like making phone calls. I'm like, that's because you didn't deliver value first. Like, what do you mean? You deliver value first and you pick up the phone, you're like, hey, did you get the thing I sent? Now you've opened a conversation. It's a business conversation. And by the way, hey, how's the family? Now you turn it personal, right? So it gives you a reason to make a phone call. Then you send a note. Marketing, we talked about that last week. I'm going to post that video. I actually sent it in email form to you. I've got that straightened out, and I got week number 4 audio straightened out. So both of those are uploaded now, and they'll be coming out at the end of the day today, and I'll send them with week number 6. So these live ones, you're going to get 4, 5, and 6 later today. 4 was a train wreck. No clue why it wasn't working. It's working now for some reason. So I can send that out to you guys, and I'll send last week's also. Okay. Number 6 in the system is setting everybody up on a long-term drip campaign, right? So number 6 is long-term drip, okay? Long-term drip. This is where having a CRM is great, that you can drip stuff to people consistently. Long-term drip campaign. So long-term drip campaign is automatic. It's automated. It's going out whether you say so or not. You set it up on a schedule and let it rip. Okay. There's a bunch of different ways you can do that. I'm not the super tech guru on that. There's a bunch of people within our system, within the EXP system, that can help you with drip campaigns and things like that, and have some turnkey stuff that you can roll with. But you want to say every single person that goes into your sphere of influence, you want to put them in a long-term drip campaign. And what that does is fires them some email. I would recommend once a month or so that goes out maybe like the last Thursday of the month, fourth week of the month, because your real estate market update can go out the second or third week of the month, typically around the second week of the month because the numbers are out. And then you can have that automatic drip pop out, just automatic email. So what happens is when you're working your sphere, you're going to work your sphere. The first 100 to 200 people, you're going to work in your sphere manually, consistently. You're always going to work your A group manually. You're always going to have things that you actually send to them and connect with them because they're your most likely suspects. Okay? Once you get north of 200 or so people, you want to start adding automation in because you can't send it to everybody, right? Everybody in your C group goes into a drip campaign, long-term drip campaign. Everybody in your A group goes into a long-term drip campaign, and your B group too. But really, the only contact you're going to have with your C group is automated. The reason you don't want to do a bunch of non-automated stuff with your C group is your C group gets so big, you don't want to do mailers to 300 and 400 and 500 people every month. I mean, you can, but you don't really need to. So you're going to say, my top 100 or 200 people, I'm going to do this every single month with them. And then once you get north of that, you want to make sure they're automated. So you still want to get your people that are your A group people in your automation stuff because you're going to have good stuff in the automated drip campaign stuff. You're going to deliver value via drip campaign. And then if you have one of those months where you're like, Jay goes, oh man, I got like 7 closings this month. Yeehaw, right? How does that feel? Jay's like, I like to have 7 closings in a month. That's 7 closings in a month. Man, I literally didn't have time to get my value piece out. They still get some type of contact automatically. Okay? You'll notice this is step 6. A lot of people say, well, Russ, I should do that right out of the gate on everybody. That's like, I want you to work this manually first. And then if your number's bigger than that, start adding every single person into a long-term drip campaign. You might say, well, what if they want to buy a house right now? Well, if they want to buy a house right now, that's what step number 7 is. Step number 7 is short-term drip campaign. Okay? Not everybody's going to get in a short-term drip campaign. But you will have buyers that want to buy something in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months. You will have sellers like, hey, I'm going to sell, but I'm going to wait till spring. You want to put them in a short-term drip campaign. You want to say, hey, I'm going to list my house. If you're going to list your house in the next 3 to 6 months, there's a great way to pop them in a short-term drip campaign that literally works them through. Hey, I'm going to pop, boom, 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 get them consistent information on listing a house. Hi, Tom Trong. I saw that. Tom Trong doing cameo appearance. What's going on, Phoenix boy?
Ready to go to lunch alone, baby.
Yeah, go for it, brother. Go for it. Good to see you, brother. Yeah. So you're.
I have to leave soon.
Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. You'll have the video of this out so you can watch the rest of it. Okay.
Thanks.
Right.
Thanks, Ross.
You're quite welcome. See ya. Okay, so short-term drip campaigns, like a seller's going to sell a house sometime in the near future. A buyer's going to buy a house sometime in the near future. Typically, you want to have these set up to be at least 3 to 6 months, and you want to make sure they're value related. So you have a buyer drip campaign that's specifically for, hey, you're thinking about buying a house, here's some things you need to know. I'm thinking about selling a house, here's some things you need to know. And they can get something that pops out to them every 10 days to 14 days at the absolute most. So what happens is this puts you in the flow with them. Again, like we talked about with the crazy 8s, if you got somebody saying, hey, I'm going to do something in the near future, great. You want to tap them on the shoulder, 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 tap them on the shoulder. It's going to be really hard to remember, man, I got to call this guy again. I got to call this guy again. I got to call this guy. I'm not saying don't do it that way, but when you're starting to run a real business, when you've got 40, 50, 60, 70 closings in a year, you start to drop the ball on stuff like that. It's just the way it works. Right now, when you're only having 1 or 2 closings a month and you only have 100, 200 people in your sphere of influence, it's not that hard to keep up with them. But when you start getting your sphere of influence in the 500, 600, 700 range, like Jay's got a bunch of people in his sphere, you want to make sure you've got long-term drip campaign stuff for everybody just to make sure you get contact with them. You're going to get specific stuff for your high-end and or your A group people. And then on top of that, you want to make sure everybody gets long-term drip campaign and then the short-term for the people that are seriously thinking now. So if I get a lead that's a buyer calling on a Craigslist ad, so I did a KV Core post with Craigslist, and the person's like, hey, I want more information about this house. Great. Be happy to give you more info about the house. If that person goes, they're going to go in a short-term drip campaign. They'll go in the long term, but I'm also going to hit them in short term because I know they're probably going to buy something in the next 3 to 6 months. So back in the day, the sign call stats were, if somebody called on a sign, they were typically within 6 months, 50% of the people that called on a sign bought a house within 6 months. So do you think that person's a really good person to have in a short-term drip to make sure you stay in contact? Because they're buying something in the next 6 months. Who are they going to buy with? They're going to buy with the person that's delivered value to and stayed in contact with. You might not hear crap from them at all for the next 3, 4, 5 months. And then you'll be like, hey, this is Frederick. I talked to you the other day, a couple months ago. And hey, thanks for keeping me up to speed on stuff. I really like that stuff you sent me on the buyer stuff. I'm ready to buy now. Let's go shopping. That's the kind of calls you get. Remember, this whole system is talking about attracting business, having business come to you, not chasing business. So this is just putting yourself in a position so that when they say, I'm ready to go, you automatically get that call. You get that call a lot versus if you randomly hit them once here, once there, once here, once there. Do you think you're getting all 100 or 200 people that you've had as leads in the last year? Do you think you get all of them consistently? Nope. And the reason you don't is because you don't have a system in place. Once you get the system in place, you've got some of it you can do manually, hot potatoes you can do manually, and everybody gets into long term, which means you stay in contact with the ones that may or may not buy, or they will in the next 7 years. And then the ones that are going to buy something or sell something soon, you got them in short-term drip campaign. So if all else fails, you'll notice the way I built this, all else fails, you skip 7, you still have everybody in long term. So you still got some kind of contact going. Not everybody needs a short term, which is why I make that step number 7. Once you get step 6 implemented with everybody, you got a little more time, set up everybody that comes in on 7, right? If you only have time to do step number 1 and 2, good. That's fine. You can build a great business doing just number 1 and 2. However, if you're going to shortcut this and say, Russ, I don't have time for all that stuff because I got other things going on. Mothers of multiple children have this issue. Grandmothers of multiple grandkids can have this issue. I only have time for step 1 and 2 without neglecting the family. Do step 1, 2, and 6. 1, 2, and 6. Literally, you can shortcut through that. You don't have to worry about the other stuff nearly as much. But if you don't do at least 1 and 2, your business is going to fall flat on its face. Build your sphere, add people to your sphere every single week, every single month, and deliver value every single month. If you don't do those, you might as well get out of business because you're going to struggle. It's going to be a dogfight. Okay? If you want a shortcut, you can do 1, 2, and 6. That's going to help you keep things smooth, but you still got to do number 1 and 2. When I talk to real estate agents consistently and the ones that are failing or they're going, hey, Russ, I think I'm going to switch brokerages. I'm like, okay, what's the number in your sphere? How many people are in your sphere? When was the last time you delivered value? And they're like, well, and they make excuses. They haven't done that. I'm like, if you're not doing that basic thing, it doesn't matter what brokerage you're at. You should probably just go out of business and hang up your shingle that says closed. Because it's going to be damn near impossible for you to be successful anywhere. Because no matter how many leads I hand to you, you're just going to only take what happens to be ready to go today. That number hits at like less than 0.5%, which means you got to go through 200 people to get one person that wants to buy or sell. Those numbers are horrible. This is why real estate agents fall out of the business all the time and or hate the business, and they feel like it's a grind because they're getting 1 out of every 200 people that'll buy or sell a house with them. So you're saying, well, Russ, I do a ton of lead gen. Yeah, that's great, but you're hitting at 0.5% if you don't do the follow-up and build the rest of the system. This is the way you end up with 10%. If you just do 1, 2, 3, and 4, you can hit 10% with your sphere of influence. I know people consistently just doing 1 and 2 that hit at 10% with their sphere of influence. They're really nice, likable people, and they do just step 1 and 2, and they connect a ton with people. They're great. If you're not that super connector, super friendly person, you're going to probably have to add 3 and 4 to get there. So what I've found is this. You pretty much end up with like, if you just build your sphere and get your contact info together, you really don't have a whole lot. So if you got a sphere but you don't do anything with them, what are you going to get? Probably next to nothing, right? Maybe a little here, a little there. 1 or 2% is what you're normally going to get if you don't do something with them. When you send them value, that adds another 5 or 6% to your hit rate. If you got 200 people in your sphere, now you're at almost 7. And if you do the follow-up calls, it adds another 1.5%. And if you do the notes, it adds another 1.5%. So you say, okay, Russ, well, I want to do the most effective thing, the least amount of time. Just do step number 1 and 2. That's going to count for about 7% of your sphere of influence, just doing step 1 and 2. The value piece is the big one. Consistently getting them value, that's the big one. That's the game changer. Particularly when you're starting to incorporate market update. That's the game changer. So a lot of people say to me, Russ, my sphere of influence is hitting at about 5%. Okay, great. So how often are you delivering value? Well, I had this going on, and, my grandbaby pooped his pants, and I had to go pick him up at school, and, all kinds of stuff happens, right? Life happens, right? Regardless of what happens in life, you got to get that value out. So, okay, we got to deliver value more consistently. Show me the last 2 things you sent as value. And then I look at it and like, here's me, here's a just listed card. Like, it's about you. That's not about them, right? You want to send out a card that says, here's the last 5 sales in your neighborhood. Here's the last sales in the last 30 days in your neighborhood. I'm totally cool with that. Put your face on it and ship it. I think those are great. Neighborhood market update is absolutely fantastic. And that brings me to number 8. Number 8 is getting specific market updates for specific people, right? This is something that takes a little bit of time, but this is a super, super powerful tool. Once you get all that other stuff done, the one thing you can really add to your business to really lock it in is, let's say I have 100 A's in my sphere of influence, 100 in my A group. I'm going to do a market analysis, specific market analysis for each one of them. Okay. The reason that's step 8 is because it's time consuming, right? It's going to take you 4 hours or so for each one of them. You got 4 hours times 100 people, it's 400 hours. So you're not going to do them all at one time, right? So you've got 100 people. You got to do 25 in the first quarter, 25 in the second quarter, 25 in the third quarter, 25 in the fourth quarter. A really great way to do this is like if you sold a house past clients, of course, they're going to be in your A group. At the 1-year mark after they bought a house, you want to do a market analysis for them. If you haven't done this yet, and you've got people from 2 and 3 years ago, these are perfect times to reconnect, an amazing way to reconnect. You call them up and you're like, hey, by the way, this is Russ, the real estate guy that helped you buy your house. Hey, I was looking at some info and I put together some info on your house, market update. I'd love to show you what your house is worth right now. When can I pop by and say hi? This is a little bit time consuming, but it's a face-to-face opportunity to deliver value to them and really reconnect. So here's the cool part. In 2007, 8, and 9, you couldn't do this, man. You'd like, hey, you bought a house in 2007. Let me come over and tell you what it's worth. You better bring a box of Kleenex with you because these people are going to burst into tears because they just lost $100 grand, right? So this process didn't work in that market. I'm telling you, I saw it a bunch. It didn't work well, right? Like you don't want to do market updates for people like, the sky is falling, right? They're like, when's it going to stop? It was really important to give people a market update so they knew what was going on. Say, hey, by the way, if you're thinking about selling, you better do it now because last year you lost $40,000 on your house. If you wait another year, you're going to lose another 40. So if you're thinking about selling in the next 6 months or a year, you better do it now because you're losing 20 grand every 6 months right now based on the market. And people are like, holy crap, Russ, I didn't know that. I need to sell my house now. And that's how I got listings in 2007 and 8. Crappy way to get listings, but people are like, oh my God, I didn't know that. I better get out now before I have to actually pay to get out, okay? So with that being said, you can do specific market updates. Step number 8 is doing specific market updates for specific people. You've got 100 people in your sphere, you're gonna do 25 this quarter. So 25 divided by 3 is what, 6? So you're doing 6 or so a month of a specific market update for specific people in your sphere of influence. And what you can say is, by the way, blah, 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 here's where you're at. Here's where you're at. Your A group people, you're going to do that every year. You want to do a market update. By the way, here's what's going on in your market. Just want to keep you up to speed. Cool part is if you had a sale 2 years ago, 3 years ago, in this market, like, Detroit market went up, what, 7% last year and 7% the year before. Tampa market's very, very similar to that. So if you bought a $200,000 house, your house is worth 28 grand more now 2 years later. So when you do a market analysis for me, like, hey, by the way, you bought it for 200. If we were to put it on the market right now, we could probably sell it for around 228. And they go, wow. It's like, yeah, you're doing pretty good. This is a great market to own a house. Aren't you glad you bought that house? Who helped you buy that house? This guy, right? Yeah. Does that make you look good? You help them make a good decision. Hopefully, depending on what market you're in, everybody's up right now. So it's a good time to call people and say, hey, by the way, I just want to make sure you know how much money you've gotten from just owning a house in the last year. So a lot of people are like, well, my work hasn't given me a raise, or I got $1 an hour raise. And you're like, great. And you got, that's $280 a year or $280 a month. Awesome, right? And you start going, hey, by the way, you just made 14 grand on your house in the last year. So you got a raise basically of over $1,000 a month just by owning a house. Pretty cool, right? Yeah. So people like to know that info. You tell them what it means. And that's a great way to do it. It takes a little bit of time, but it's worth your while. Now, can you get points for your 30 points by doing that? Yeah. Do people want to see this? Yep. Can you print it out and mail it to them? Yep. Would you be best going to see them? Say, hey, let's grab a cup of coffee and I'll walk you through what's happened with your house. It'll be great to reconnect again. Yeah, that'd be even better, right? And get you up to speed with something, and now you're becoming more their expert and their consultant. And you get to deliver good news. Isn't it fun to deliver good news? It's like, I want to pick up the phone and be like, okay, Jay, I've got good news. I got a $6,000 check for you. You want it? He's like, heck yeah, love to. By the way, I just want to let you know, you got another $14,000 in your pocket. You're like, what? What do you mean? You realize you made 14 more grand? And you're like, what? What are you talking about? I just ran the numbers on your house. You bought the house 2 years ago. It's appreciated 7% last year, 7% this year. So I ran the math on your house. $200,000 house is worth about almost $230 right now. So you've made almost $30,000 in the last 2 years, or whatever that number is, right? And people go, wow, okay, cool. So they feel like they hit the lotto, right? I see people getting handed $100 bills by Secret Santa on this one website YouTube thing. There's a Secret Santa dude that hands out $100 bills, and people are busting into tears over $100. Can you imagine how they're going to feel if you just told them they made 7 more grand, or they made 14 more grand, or they made 30 more grand in the last 2 years? Is that a, hey, Merry Christmas to you, Happy Holidays? By the way, I just want to let you know your house is worth $30,000 more than when you bought it 2 years ago. They go, what? Is that a good way to call people? So people go, Russ, I don't want to call my people in my sphere of influence. Call them up and give them good news. It's kind of fun. See how this shifts the way you do business? See how this shifts the way you look at customers? See how this shifts the way you communicate? See how this shifts the way you deliver value? Important stuff to do and takes your business to the next level. So there you go. You've got 6, 7, and 8 done, locked down, and ready to go.